Sounds like you've been quite busy these past few months. What sort of things are you doing between races? Because I suppose you've got to keep yourself pretty active at the moment, both mentally and physically, just in case, any team needs you for any of the races coming up.
Yeah, well, obviously it's been hit and miss, like sometimes hectic and busy, sometimes very quiet, depending on the week. But no, obviously it's been cool and fun, to stand in always the two times I did, like so last second. I quite, enjoyed that challenge and the experience. And obviously, then at the end, if the end result is good, it's all worthwhile, obviously. Yeah, keeping myself fit, but, driving fitness is something that is very hard to train or get in a gym. You really kind of have to be in the car for that. But whenever I get a chance, you just have to cope. And I think kind of my experience helps a little bit there also to to get around some of the problems you face.
Yeah, and I suppose you must be, every time your phone's going off, you must be thinking, like, does your heart drop a bit and think, well, who could this be? Is it kind of like that, or are you just trying to not think about it too much? Because I suppose that is when you can get into some trouble, is when you start thinking like every call, like, hey, this could be big, and it could just be anyone.
Yeah, to be honest, I take it very easy. I live my life. I take every day at a time, and when it rings, and I see who's there. It's not obviously you can see on the phone display who is calling you.
Yeah.
But yeah, the two times I did get the late call, it was obviously super surprise, and not much time to think really. We just had to react so quickly each time because it was so short notice. The first time obviously I was not even in the country, so I had to travel first. The second time I was luckily quite close geographically, and that helped. But just got to do it. Obviously, the fact that it was two times the same team helps a lot because the seat is there, the infrastructure is kind of set up already. For any other team, you couldn't do it so short notice like Nürburgring, anyways.
If you hadn't driven the Racing Point earlier in the season, it would have been nearly impossible. And the car had changed a bit. I remember you saying since Silverstone. So just explain a bit, like just how difficult is it to get in there and even get close to the maximum of your performance when you've literally just been dropped in like that for a session like that?
Yeah, it is very difficult, and every obviously car feels different anyways per se. There's different kind of vibrations going through the car from different power units, different seating position, etc., etc. There's so many things that kind of need to get your head around, get the feel, and then the hang of it. Now, obviously, I knew the Racing Point from the Silverstone weekends. But things have changed, especially on the technical side, like you touched on. So it's just something, if you have no time and it's, immediately the most competitive session, qualifying. So it's not like, you can have, an easy warm up and ease yourself in. So it's really kind of straight a kick in the butt and, see what you can do. But
across all 3 weekends that you've been performing, there was loads of things said by, drivers currently, Ricciardo, Verstappen. I think Lewis and a few others, were saying like, how good it was to see you coming back and doing so well, and saying that you deserved a seat next year. And I was wondering what it's like to hear that, because on the one hand, it's a nice thing for them to say, but there must be an element of frustration there as well, because you must be like, well, yeah, give me a seat. These guys are saying it. So when you're back in the mix and hearing that, what's the reaction to that?
Well, these guys, they don't decide. Frankly, at the end of the day, they're not the team owners or principals. I mean, they could be nice enough to give up their seats. That would be a nice
yeah,
gesture.
I mean, if Lewis is listening, maybe he can give you. Maybe that's the best one.
I think that's unlikely, but
yeah.
No, it's obviously nice to get that kind of feedback from respected drivers and colleagues. Happy to hear that and take that on board. But yeah, I mean, the situation, it is obviously Formula One 20 seats. It's just super limited. It's really very few numbers. And this is, again, one thing, that's kind of out of my control, is other people making the decision kind of for me or about me, if you like. But, I'm not too stressed about it. I think I delivered when I had the chance this year. Obviously, that's the one thing. If you're not, fully in doing a season, it's kind of difficult to, obviously, you're not that visible. And people, tend to forget quickly. They always just remember the last race. So not so easy to make an impression. So I was very happy to be able to receive some races and perform well. And I think I did what I had to do. And now it's up to them.
One guy at the moment who's not sure what he's doing is Sergio Perez, your old teammate. I was wondering what you made of that situation, because I know that the two of you were really close when you were Force India teammates. And to see him kind of not sure where he's going, it's kind of, it's surprising sometimes to see that, as it was with yourself.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, yeah, it is a very expensive sport, and often commercial, reasons, have a big factor there in teams' decisions. I mean, that's no news really. Of course, in a way, unfortunate for Checo, but maybe also lucky for him. We don't know yet. Depends where he ends up, I guess. But he's definitely one of the drivers. He needs to be on the grid. Just yesterday, he did an epic drive. I felt super good job in Portugal, and I'm not worried for him, to be honest, that he will not get a drive.
For yourself in 2021, how have things changed around this year? Because I think what you said about having a chance to show people what you could do is quite interesting, because had this year gone as every other year before this has gone, you might not have had that opportunity. So has that opened up doors and conversations that maybe you wouldn't have had without those opportunities to get back in the car? Or has it just kind of been a nice way of reminding people that while those conversations already went on, you're like, well, here's what I can do anyway?
Yeah, I think more what you said secondly, that it's a good way of reminding people of my name, of what I'm capable of, that I'm also still around. But given that, it's not like somebody put a contract right in front of me. It hasn't really had that kind of change or impact. On the other side, I think if it would have been a completely normal year, no corona, no step-ins for me, I also wouldn't have had the contract in front of me. So that didn't really change the situation. But of course, people are more aware now. My name has been mentioned in the press a lot. So of course, it's given some positive media and coverage.
About figuring out your next move. And one thing I wanted to talk to you about is actually what it's like for you in the situation you were at the end of last year and the start of this year, kind of when you're faced with that decision of stepping away from Formula One and actually kind of working out what the next step is. So when you left Abu Dhabi last year, what was that like, kind of going away from there? There must have been a lot of uncertainty. How do you approach that situation? Did you go into the off season thinking like, sweet, I've got the winter off, or was it kind of almost an anxiety to kind of get back and work out what the next step was?
I think every scenario, every driver probably would be different. But for me, obviously, I knew that there's at least 1 year out, and away from Formula One. But I was kind of, good about it, because I think some parts of me felt that was kind of also necessary, or time for a little break, to refresh, step aside for a moment. Obviously, always, being aware that, with a year out is kind of difficult to come back, of course, if you're realistic. But it's kind of, what I needed or wanted at the time as well. So I wasn't really anxious about anything. I knew, that I have a good name, which, doesn't give you a seat, but I had 10 years, fair share of time in Formula One. And I'm very keen. I still have a lot of passion for the sport. It's, what I want to do. It's probably what I'm best at too. So hopefully I get another crack. So I'm keen, but not desperate, and obviously just to be in Formula One, under any sort of circumstances doesn't really make sense, if you had a decent career in Formula One. So it kind of needs to be a solution that works for everyone. And for me, as a driver, obviously you always want, some perspective on the sporting side, that you have something that teases you, where you can go racing, and you're going to be in the hunt for points at least.
When you're sitting on the sofa and you know what that's like, that must be quite a tough kind of mental adjustment, especially for the first one. I imagine that's quite difficult.
Obviously the thing was that when did the season start? June?
The first weekend of June, Austria.
Exactly. So the season obviously starts very late. So all of lockdown, I'm not seeing racing. I'm not seeing, I see that I'm not missing out on anything. No one is on the track. So I kind of, it was easier. I was very relaxed. I was actually really enjoyed the lockdown time. And then once they started racing, obviously I'm following, I'm watching, and only then, started to think like, I remember Austria, the first race was a killer, or a really good one. I'm like, I would have, liked to be part in that.
Yeah. Just finally on the F1 stuff and watching races, what do you think? What do you make of F1 as the product when you watch it like that? Because you've seen so many races from inside the car, and you know what your race looks like. In those races, you're not thinking about who's the battle for sixth or who the battle for second or whatever. You're just concentrating on your race. So the way it's presented and the way the races come across, what do you make of it? Because there's a lot of talk about the way to make the product better. And if it needs to get better, I wonder what you made of that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the racing is racing. You can't change the principle, obviously, and the wheel is always going to be round. But I think the product is not bad. Of course, you have every kind of 6-7 races we get, a stunner. And obviously it would be good if we have more regularly, or if every race could be, super spectacular. We would get more attention, attract more fans. Viewing numbers probably would be higher. So something that you could try and, work on, which I think Formula One is already doing, by addressing the technical regulations, which obviously have been postponed to 2022. But hopefully that will, bring it more into this direction. I mean, these are the ultimate sophisticated racing cars, the fastest cars in the world. To do that, we need aerodynamics. But aerodynamics then on the, other side kind of kill racing a little bit. So, yeah, catching your tail a little bit. But watching from outside, and also last Friday in Portimao and FP1, it was only FP1 and grip was slow and stuff. But still seeing them going around, some of these corners, it is bloody cool and very spectacular, and an amazing industry still for me, very fascinating.
There's been some cool racetracks added to the calendar this year. Which one of the new ones? I know you've kind of hinted that you went to the Nordschleife, but which of the new ones do you kind of regret you didn't get a chance to race on this year?
So which one we had? Portimao now?
We've had Portimao, we had Mugello, and then Turkey's coming back, and Imola is obviously this weekend. So out of those four, if you had to pick one.
It's probably Portimao, not because it's the most recent, but I raced there in 2009 in GP2 back then, and it's a pretty cool circuit, I have to say. Turkey really cool. Turkey I raced in my first year in 2010. Imola I've never raced, so I don't know, but it doesn't seem that special. Obviously Zandvoort, they missed out on Zandvoort this year, which would be quite cool. But Portimao, it's a cool place, cool track.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube, and for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app, and for premium content plus live streaming, make sure to subscribe to ESPN Player.